Summer heat isn't just stealing milk, it's robbing dairy farmers of $1,500 per cow annually. Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where we tackle the tough questions the dairy industry is too afraid to ask. Today we're ripping the Band-Aid off conventional heat stress strategies. Why are 63% of heat stress costs hitting dairy herds while most farms still rely on outdated fans and prayers? We're exposing the $2.9 billion elephant in the barn. Half measures don't cut it anymore. This episode, we're diving into the proven system's tripling ROI, the hidden link between dry cow cooling and your herd's genetic future, and why your nutrition tweaks might be fueling acidosis instead of fighting it. If you're still treating heat stress as a summer nuisance, you're subsidizing your competitors. Let's fix that.
All right, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into something that hits dairy farms hard every single summer. Heat stress.
Yeah, it's a huge financial drain. We're talking figures north of $1,500 per cow per year.
That's serious money just evaporating, isn't it?
Yeah.
And industry-wide, the numbers are kind of staggering.
They really are. Somewhere between, $897 million and $1.5 billion lost annually. That's with the cooling strategies many farms already use.
And potentially almost $3 billion without any intervention.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so this isn't small potatoes.
Not at all. And for you listening, the farmers, the industry pros who fight this battle year after year, we want to go beyond the usual discussion.
Right. We're not just talking about that obvious drop in milk.
Exactly. We're diving deep into why maybe those good enough or half-measure strategies might actually be costing you more than you realize, bleeding you dry in hidden ways.
Okay. So less about the bulk tank level, more about the sneaky profit killers.
That's the plan. We'll unpack how heat messes with milk components, reproduction, overall health, and the dry cows too, right? That's often overlooked.
Hugely overlooked.
Yeah.
And it impacts the next generation. So yeah, consider this a no-nonsense look at the full economic sting.
And why a really comprehensive approach isn't just nice, it's, essential for staying profitable.
For sure. And let's be honest, anyone who's worked a summer on a dairy knows cows and heat don't mix well.
Right. It's not exactly news.
But the sheer size of the financial hit and how we sometimes, stick with Band-Aids when we need more, that's what's eye-opening.
Like trying to bail out a boat with a teaspoon when there are holes in the bottom.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty then. We all see milk production dip when it gets hot. That's the obvious one.
It's the most visible sign, yeah. Easy to measure.
But you mentioned earlier the impact isn't the same everywhere.
No, definitely not. It varies quite a bit regionally. For instance, a dairy in Wisconsin might see costs around, say, $72 per cow per year.
Still significant.
But compare that to Florida or Texas, you could be looking at nearly $700 per cow.
Wow. $700.
Yeah. And think about what that means in terms of profit margins. Losing $700 per cow is like losing the profit for maybe 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of milk.
Just gone. Poof, vanished with the heat.
Exactly. That's a big chunk of income to just accept losing every year.
Okay. So beyond just less milk volume, where else is heat stress punching us in the wallet?
Well, let's look right at that milk check. Beyond the gallons, heat stress actually changes the milk itself.
How so?
We often see a drop in protein percentage, and sometimes milk fat depression too.
Okay, why does that happen?
Well, several reasons. One key thing is the cow has a reduced supply of essential amino acids reaching the mammary gland. These are the building blocks for milk protein.
So less building material available.
Right. Plus, the whole rumen environment gets kind of thrown off. You get respiratory alkalosis because the cow's panting so much, trying to cool down.
Wait, panting affects the rumen. That's interesting.
It does. It changes the blood chemistry, which impacts rumen buffering, and their feeding patterns change too, which disrupts rumen function.
Okay, so it's a chain reaction.
It really is. And all these rumen issues mess with nutrient digestion. Now think about how you get paid.
Components.
Right.
Butterfat and protein percentages.
Exactly. Premiums or penalties. So even a small drop, like just 0.1% in fat.
Yeah.
That can easily cost a larger farm thousands of dollars every single month.
Ouch. So less milk, and the milk you do get is worth less per pound. That's a real double whammy.
Hits you right where it hurts financially.
What about longer-term impacts? You mentioned reproduction takes a hit.
Yes. And this is where the costs really add up silently, over time. Heat stress isn't just an immediate problem.
It has delayed effects.
Absolutely. What's really crucial to understand is the timing. Heat stress can actually damage the oocytes, the eggs, like 40 to 50 days before they're even ovulated.
Hold on. 40 to 50 days.
Yeah. The damage happens way before you even think about breeding that cow. Those potential pregnancies were compromised weeks earlier.
So that really hot spell you had in July
Could still be messing up your conception rates way into September.
that is a sobering thought. You're fighting battles from weeks ago.
Precisely. While you're focused on the milk drop during the heat, your future pregnancies are already being jeopardized.
And then you think about the extra costs.
Right. How many extra straws of semen are you using? More preg checks because cows aren't settling.
It all adds up. It's like a hidden summer tax on breeding.
Definitely. A substantial hidden cost.
Okay, so we've got milk components down, reproduction struggling. What other financial leaks are hiding out there?
Health issues are another big one. Heat stress weakens the cow's immune system,
Making her more susceptible.
significantly more, to things like mastitis, especially when it's hot and humid and bacteria are having a field day.
Makes sense. What about lameness? Is there a link?
There is, actually. To cool off, cows tend to stand more. They're trying to increase airflow around their bodies.
But all that extra standing.
Puts more strain on their feet and legs, increases the risk of lameness.
Okay, and then the gut issues. You mentioned Sarah.
Exactly. Subacute ruminal acidosis. The risk goes way up.
Why is that?
Well, remember the panting. It reduces the natural buffering from saliva. Plus, those altered feeding patterns we talked about, maybe slug feeding when it cools off, that destabilizes the rumen pH.
Which opens the door to other problems.
Oh, yeah. Reduced nutrient absorption, lower efficiency, potentially other metabolic issues, and don't forget the labor side.
Dealing with more sick cows.
Right when your team is already stretched thin because of the heat, have you factored in that extra treatment time, the medication costs, the stress on your people?
It's a domino effect, isn't it? Sick cows, less milk, more work during the toughest time of year.
You got it. Now, you also brought up dry cows earlier. That's something I think really deserves more attention.
Yeah, I agree. What's the impact there?
It's often underestimated, but it's significant. Heat stress during the dry period can actually impair the development of the mammary gland itself.
So it affects the udder development for the next lactation.
Exactly. It means when that cow freshens, she just doesn't have the physical capacity to produce as much milk. We could be talking 8 to 11 pounds less milk per day.
8 to 11 pounds a day, just lost from the start of that lactation.
Right, because of heat stress during the previous dry period. It's like hobbling her before the race even starts.
That's a huge hit to her potential. And you said it affects the calves too.
Yes, this is where it gets really fascinating and honestly a bit scary. It's called fetal programming.
Fetal programming.
Yeah. If the dam experiences significant heat stress, especially late in gestation, it negatively impacts the developing fetus.
In what ways?
These calves can be born with weaker immune systems. They might have lower survival rates.
Okay.
And here's the kicker for the future herd. The female offspring, the heifers born from heat-stressed dams, they often have significantly lower lifetime milk production.
How much lower?
Studies suggest maybe 5 to 14 pounds less milk per day across their first 3 lactations.
Wow. For potentially 3 whole lactations.
Yes. So that one hot summer when you didn't cool the dry cows effectively, you might have just set back your genetic progress for years to come.
So skimping on dry cow cooling isn't just a short-term saving, it's a long-term cost. That's a crucial point.
It absolutely is.
Okay, the problem is clear. Heat stress is this multi-headed beast costing farms a fortune. Let's talk solutions. Fans, sprinklers, are we using them right? Getting the ROI we expect?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because not all cooling is created equal. Many farms are investing, but maybe not in the most effective way to get the best bang for their buck.
It's about understanding how cooling actually works.
Exactly. The principles of heat transfer. Are you really maximizing evaporative cooling? Are you moving enough air? It's like trying to cool your house efficiently. If you leave all the windows wide open, you're using energy, but not getting the result.
Okay, let's break down the common methods. Fans and sprinklers. That's the standard combo, right?
It is, and often a very good one, especially in more humid climates. The research is pretty clear. The combination is much better than just fans or just sprinklers alone.
Why is the combination so important?
The sprinklers need to thoroughly wet the cow's coat, right down to the skin, not just a light mist. Then the fans provide the crucial airflow over her body.
To speed up evaporation?
Exactly. That evaporation is what pulls the heat away. It's a powerful synergy. Yet you still see farms with just fans or sprinklers that don't provide enough water, or the cycle timing is off.
It's like having a milking system without pulsation, maybe. You're missing a key part of the process.
That's a good way to put it. You're not getting the full efficiency.
What about the bigger systems? Tunnel or cross-ventilated barns?
Those are definitely a step up in terms of controlling the environment. When they're designed well, often using evaporative cooling pads at the air inlets.
Like the swamp coolers.
Sort of, yeah. They can create a much more consistent, cool environment. Studies show significantly lower body temps, much smaller drops in milk production in well-managed tunnel barns, for example.
They sound like a good option, especially if natural ventilation isn't great.
Definitely. If your barn location or size or orientation limits natural airflow, these mechanical systems can be invaluable.
But a bigger investment up front, presumably.
Generally, yes, but the level of control is much higher. Now, you touched on climate earlier. Does that really dictate the best tech?
Yeah, how important is matching the system to the local humidity?
It's absolutely critical. Humidity is key. In humid areas, like much of the Midwest or Northeast, the air can't hold much more moisture.
Right.
So your best bet is directly wetting the cows, soaking sprinklers, combined with high airspeed from fans.
Okay. And in drier places, like the West or Southwest.
There, the air can absorb more moisture, so systems that cool the air itself, like misters that create a very fine fog, or those evaporative cooling pads in tunnel or cross-vent barns can be very effective.
But using the wrong system is bad.
Oh, yeah. Using misters in a humid climate, you basically just create a steam bath. You make it harder for the cow to cool off because evaporation slows right down.
That makes sense. So know your humidity. Okay, back to the money. These systems, especially the more advanced ones, cost real dollars. Is the investment truly worth it? What's the ROI look like?
Let's look at the numbers because they're pretty persuasive. Take dry cow cooling specifically. Investing in that has shown an average payback of around 5.7 years.
That's pretty solid.
It is. Milk pre-coolers, which help with milk quality and save energy, often pay back even faster, maybe 3.5 years on average.
Okay, and the big ventilation systems?
When you look at something like tunnel ventilation, the reduction in milk losses alone can justify a much higher initial investment than just basic fans and sprinklers. Some studies suggest it justifies spending up to an extra $332 per cow space.
So the math works out. It's not just about cow comfort, it's tangible financial return.
Absolutely. The money you save each year by preventing those losses, milk, repro, health, gives you a really attractive return on that initial investment.
It's like earning interest instead of losing principal.
Exactly. In some really hot regions, the savings in just the first summer can actually get close to paying for the upgrades.
So given those numbers, why the hesitation sometimes? We invest heavily in parlors, in feed storage. Why is cooling sometimes seen as, optional?
That is the persistent question, isn't it? It feels like maybe some producers have just accepted summer losses as inevitable, a cost of doing business.
Instead of seeing it as a problem with a solvable, profitable solution.
Right. We wouldn't accept a milking system that leaves half the milk behind, or feed storage that ruins half the TMR we invest to fix those.
Effective heat abatement should be seen the same way, as essential infrastructure.
I certainly think so. In many places, it's just as critical to maintaining performance as anything else during those hot months.
Okay, point taken. Let's shift gears to the cow herself. Beyond the environment, what about nutrition? How can we help her cope from the inside out?
Nutrition is a massive piece of this, and it's way more than just, tossing in some extra buffer.
It needs a more strategic approach.
Definitely. A proper heat stress feeding strategy means reformulating the entire ration to account for what's happening physiologically inside that cow.
Okay, so what are the key things we need to adjust in a summer ration?
Well, first off, energy density is key. Cows naturally eat less when it's hot.
Dry matter intake drops.
Right. So you need to pack more energy into every bite they do take. This often means using supplemental fats, especially rumen and urt or bypass fats.
Why bypass fats?
They provide energy without generating as much heat during rumen fermentation compared to, say, carbohydrates. We also need to look closely at fiber.
How so?
Replacing some of the rapidly fermented carbs with highly digestible fiber sources helps maintain energy intake, but can also lower the risk of SARA. Think of it as a more stable energy release, like a rumen surge protector, maybe?
Oh, I like that. A rumen surge protector. Okay, what about protein?
We need to make sure enough essential amino acids get downstream to the small intestine, even if rumen microbial protein synthesis might dip a bit.
So maybe more bypass protein or other sources.
Exactly. Using more rumen undegradable protein or perhaps some slow-release nitrogen sources can help ensure her amino acid needs are met.
So it's about getting more energy in, but carefully, while ensuring protein supply. What about specific additives? Buffers, electrolytes, yeast, do they really work?
They absolutely can when used correctly. Buffers, like sodium bicarbonate, are really important.
To counteract the effects of panting on rumen pH.
Precisely. Increasing bicarb to maybe 8 to 12 ounces per head per day can really help stabilize that rumen pH, maintain fiber digestion, and protect milk fat.
Okay. And electrolytes.
Critical. Cows sweat a lot, and they lose significant amounts of potassium and sodium.
So we need to replace those.
Definitely. We often need to boost dietary potassium levels up to maybe 1.5 to 1.7% of dry matter intake, and watch sodium too. It's surprising how often summer mineral levels look just like winter levels.
Like expecting your truck to run the same coolant level in July as in January.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense. You have to adjust for the conditions. And then there's yeast.
What's the benefit there?
Specific strains of live yeast or yeast cultures can really support the rumen. They help stabilize pH. Some studies suggest they might even help slightly lower body temperature, and they can definitely help maintain milk fat.
So they're not just hype. They can be useful tools.
They can be very effective tools for keeping that rumen microbiome happy under stress.
So it's a whole diet approach, not just one magic ingredient. What about just the practical side of feeding? Does how we feed matter in summer?
Oh, absolutely. Feed management is huge. And let's start with the most basic, but maybe most important, water.
Access becomes even more critical.
It's non-negotiable. Water intake can jump 50% or more. You need multiple watering points, plenty of space, aim for like 1.5 to 2 inches of linear trough space per cow.
And keep them full.
And keep them full with a fast refill rate. And this is huge. Clean them daily.
Daily.
Every day in the summer. Think about it. Would you want to drink lukewarm water from a trough full of algae and old feed?
Point taken. No.
Neither do they. Cleanliness drives intake. Then think about when you feed.
Shift to cooler times.
Yes. Late afternoon, evening feeding often works well.
Yeah.
Maybe feed smaller meals more frequently to keep feed fresh. Encourage consistent intake. Discourage slug feeding.
And keep pushing feed up.
Constantly. Ensure that TMR is well mixed and always accessible. Minimize sorting. These aren't small things. They're fundamental management for heat stress.
Okay, environment, nutrition. Let's look at the barns themselves. Are there simple facility tweaks, things that don't break the bank that can help?
For sure. Many barns can be improved with some relatively low-cost adjustments. Ventilation is king.
What are the goals with ventilation?
2 main things. First, air exchange, getting the hot, humid, stale air out and fresh air in. Aim for 40 to 60 air changes per hour in summer.
Okay, number 1 is air exchange. Number 2,
Airspeed over the cows. You want that moving air, ideally 3 to 5 miles per hour, right where the cows are resting, to help with evaporative cooling.
how do we achieve that practically?
In naturally ventilated barns, it starts with the basics. Big sidewall openings, unobstructed, let the air move through.
And the roof design matters.
Absolutely. Adequate eave height helps, and a properly sized open ridge vent is crucial to let that hot air escape upwards. Heat rises, let it out.
But what if natural ventilation just isn't cutting it? Maybe the barn design or location is poor.
Then mechanical ventilation fans, tunnel, cross vent becomes necessary, not optional. It's surprising how many barns are really designed more for winter warmth than summer cooling.
Limited openings, maybe not enough slope for airflow.
Exactly. And one critical area that often gets completely neglected,
Where is that?
the milking parlor holding pen.
Ah, yes. Cows packed in tight.
High density, high stress. That area needs aggressive cooling. Multiple high-speed fans, maybe even intermittent sprinklers. It makes a huge difference to cow stress during milking.
That's a really key takeaway. Don't forget the holding pen. What about water systems inside the barn?
We hit on intake, but placement and capacity matter too. Multiple troughs spread out to reduce bullying.
And enough space at each one.
That 1.5 to 2 inches per cow, yeah. And check the refill rates. Can they keep up when everyone wants a drink at once?
And clean them.
Daily. Can't stress that enough. Also, think about water temperature. Exposed pipes in the sun can heat water up significantly.
So maybe insulate or shade water lines.
Worth looking into. Anything to keep that water cool and appealing. Small details, big impact on intake.
Okay, we've covered cows, cooling, feed, facilities. What about the people, the farm team working in this heat?
Great point. We absolutely cannot forget the human element. Keeping cows cool often means more work for people right when they're also stressed by the heat.
So we need strategies for the team too.
Definitely. Smart scheduling is step one. Can demanding jobs be shifted to cooler parts of the day?
Early morning, late evening.
Whenever possible. If not, implement more frequent breaks. Make sure those breaks are in cool, shaded spots. Rotate people through the really tough tasks.
Maybe even bring in extra help during peak heat.
Seriously consider it. And pay extra attention to new employees or people just back from time off. They aren't acclimatized.
Is there data on that?
Yeah. OSHA data shows a scary high number of heat illnesses and fatalities happen to workers in their first few days on a job or right after returning. Acclimatization is real. We need to protect them.
So scheduling, breaks, acclimatization, what else?
Water, water, water. Easy access to cool drinking water. Encourage them to drink before they feel thirsty.
Provide shaded or air-conditioned rest areas.
Absolutely essential. Encourage light-colored, loose clothing. And most importantly, training.
Training on heat stress.
Yes. Everyone, workers, supervisors, needs to know the risks, recognize the signs in themselves and others, know the prevention strategies, and know exactly what to do in an emergency.
Like quick toolbox talks before shifts.
Perfect idea. Reinforce it constantly. A heat-stressed employee isn't just unsafe, they're less effective, maybe less observant of the cows too. Protecting the team is part of protecting the herd.
It all ties together. So the overarching theme here seems to be that prevention just pays way better than reacting after the fact.
The data couldn't be clearer on that. Implementing comprehensive preventative strategies gives a much, much better return than just treating sick cows or accepting lost milk.
You mentioned some figures earlier.
Yeah, one analysis suggested optimal abatement systems could cut the total annual cost of heat stroke by something like 40% nationwide.
40% reduction in cost. That's huge.
It is. Another study showed farms with optimal cooling had about a 43% lower total cost that includes losses and mitigation costs compared to farms doing nothing.
So being proactive just makes overwhelming economic sense.
Undeniably, you're not just saving milk volume, you're preventing that whole cascade. The repro issues, the health problems, the potential early culling, the costs just stack up.
So why isn't it treated with the same urgency as, say, preventing transition cow diseases?
That's the puzzle, isn't it? We have protocols for ketosis, for DAs. We wouldn't just accept high rates of those. Heat stress needs that same preventative mindset. It's predictable and largely preventable.
Okay, so for listeners who are nodding along saying, okay, I'm convinced I need to do more, what's the action plan? Where do they start for maximum impact?
Right, let's prioritize. Number one, the absolute non-negotiables. Universal shade for all animals and abundant, clean, cool, accessible water. These are basic welfare foundations.
Start there. What's next?
Target your intensive cooling efforts. Hit the high priority zones. The parlor holding pen, definitely. The feed bunk area. And the dry cows all the way through the dry period. And ensure good airflow over resting stalls.
So focus the heavy artillery where it counts most.
Third, nutrition. Get serious about a heat stress specific ration. Energy density, the right fiber, appropriate protein, buffers, electrolytes, maybe targeted additives if needed. Don't just tweak the winter ration.
Reformulate properly for summer. Got it. And finally,
management and monitoring. Adjust routines, less handling in the heat. Use low-stress techniques. Regularly monitor cows and people for heat stress signs. And critically, keep your cooling equipment maintained. Fans work better clean. Sprinklers work better unclogged.
Makes sense. Check the systems are actually doing what they're supposed to do. So it's environment, nutrition, management, all working together.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach. And it really represents a shift we need to make.
How so?
Heat stress isn't just a southern problem anymore. With climate change, it's a growing challenge everywhere. The old way reacting to milk drops with a few fans just isn't enough to stay profitable and keep cows performing well.
The new paradigm is comprehensive prevention.
That's where success lies in managing summer heat going forward. If you stick with partial solutions, you're basically guaranteeing you'll leave profit on the table. It's that simple.
So as we wrap this up, the real questions for you listening are pretty direct. First, what concrete changes are you going to implement before the heat really hits this season?
And maybe more pointedly, how much longer can your dairy really afford to treat heat stress like it's just some unavoidable seasonal annoyance instead of the major preventable economic drain the evidence shows it is?
The key takeaways seem clear. Prevention pays far better than reaction. There are huge hidden costs beyond just milk volume. Don't ignore the dry cows. Target your cooling efforts. and get the nutrition right.
Proactive heat abatement isn't an expense, it's profit protection. It's investing in the resilience and success of your business.
Thanks for joining us on the Bullvine Podcast. If this episode lit a fire under your heat abatement strategy, hit subscribe and share it with the producer who's still using a handheld thermometer. Want the full breakdown? Head to thebullvine.com for our summer heat survival guide, complete with ROI calculators and a cooling system cheat sheet. Until next time, stop reacting. Start preventing. Your bottom line can't afford another scorched summer. Stay bold, stay profitable,